Did Russell Brand just join the slew of celebrities and influencers that have made bold professions of faith in Jesus? From a debilitating addiction to a Hollywood relationship with masquerading himself on the red carpet to a journey of trying psychedelics and all types of spirituality. And after a decade of dabbling in the new age and spirituality, you won't believe where he seems to have landed. It goes without saying that this story gets very dark, has lots of twists and turns, and ultimately, he's been pretty open about sharing his at least admiration for Jesus throughout the whole process, which is why we're covering this on my channel. Ladies and gentlemen, this channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God. My name is Ruslan, and we are on the verge of cracking 500,000 subscribers, so it would be amazing if you hit that subscribe button. To fully understand Russell Brand's recent profession and or announcement of faith in Jesus, we have to get some context. We have to go back in time where Russell was in a much, much more darker place in his life.
When I got into crack and those things accelerate your decline. It becomes quite quickly something you want to do all the time. I didn't wait for, which obviously physically addicting and you experience withdrawal if you don't take it. I didn't ever experience withdrawal. I just started taking it all the time. I'd taken it first when I was about 19, smoking it. I liked it, but I didn't do it all the time then. I don't know, I was a student, I was at a drama school then, but then I took it a couple of years later when I was, I think by this time, doing stand-up comedy, working at MTV, and I just thought, I'm gonna do this always. I was living in Camden in North London, I started getting it all the time, taking it all the time, every day. The type of addiction I have, it accelerated very quickly, so that I was doing it all the time, doing it in conjunction with crack, because if you take a lot of you're knackered the whole time, you're gouching out and delirious, and a little bit of crack can make you a bit more sociable, particularly if you've got to, for example, be a VJ on an MTV show, creating links between videos. So I started doing like crack and consistently, and the deterioration was pretty fast. I'm not sure how long that, well, I reckon I was about 24 when I started becoming dependent on him, and I got clean, thank you God, at 27.
Now, it would be a Brit like Russell Brand to make doing sound eloquent. Man, those accents. It was this that led him to eventually dabble into psychedelics and ultimately start opening himself up to something spiritual, something beyond what he's experiencing in this natural world. So in the midst of him transitioning to psychedelic drugs, he discovers what he defines as greater consciousness. I think ultimately realizing that the universe is much bigger than him. But that also comes with some other issues that are a bit problematic when it comes to theology. But what Russell Brand didn't know is that he could have been opening himself up to some darker spiritual realms by dabbling in some of this stuff. So perhaps what he didn't factor in is that when he was dabbling in some of these psychedelics, he was inadvertently opening himself up to a more darker spiritual element. And perhaps that's what kept him addicted to drugs longer than he needed to be. And this ultimately led to him going full on New Age. Even him leading meditations like this on YouTube.
Om Namo Gurudev Namo. Om Namo. I am.
So despite all this, he remained sort of open-minded, taking part in aspects of Christianity, despite the majority of Christianity, New Age, seemingly dunking on Jesus. He, along the journey, embraced Jesus by getting this tattoo of Jesus.
I got this tattoo done recently of Jesus Christ, the symbol of the resurrection, the possibility for divine God consciousness to be expressed through mankind. Whether or not you identify as a Christian, meaning you believe that Christ is the Son of God and that the Christian, or one particular branch of the Christian theology is the answer to the problem of being alive and dying and that Christ rose again.
Now, some people would say a little bit of Jesus is better than no Jesus. So him seemingly having a buffet approach to religion where he's taking a little bit of Hindu, taking a little bit of Christianity, taking a little bit of New Age. It's, hey, at least he's talking about Jesus. But what I found interesting is that the video he just released is actually seemingly in stark contrast of this position, where we as Christians would say, no, all roads don't lead to Rome, that Jesus is the only way to the Father. He is the only way to God. So I'm curious if you hear what I may be hearing in this latest video of his seeming more overt and more exclusive profession in Jesus, or do you think this is just more of the, let me take a little bit of Jesus and a little bit of New Age and combine it and make my own smorgasbord belief system? In his new video, Why I Wear a Cross, Russell Brand went on to say this.
The reason I wear a cross is because Christianity, and in particular, the figure of Christ, are, it seems to me, inevitably becoming more important as I become more familiar with suffering, purpose, self, and not self.
Notice what he said there, suffering, which a lot of religions address, and giving people a sense of purpose, but then he got to the point of self and not self, meaning that not being consumed with either your performance or what's inside of you, seemingly Christ consciousness and God and the universe, has led him to reevaluate and see the uniqueness of Christianity.
Reading the Bible a lot more, and as I've told you before, I'm reading Rick Warren's Purpose-Driven Life.
Now, Rick Warren was pastor of Saddleback Church, and Purpose-Driven Life was one of the best-selling books when it came out about 20 years ago, even being number 2 to the Bible at the time. Rick Warren catches a lot of flack, oftentimes rightfully so. But I recall reading Purpose-Driven Life, and let me tell you, it's pretty good. It's fairly simple, going through different daily devotionals. Sometimes he's kind of Frankensteining some verses here or there, but overall, he just pointed people not to their purpose and their self-actualization. He actually just points people to different desires that God has for them and God's purpose for them. So I'm intrigued that Russell Brand is reading this book from 20 years ago.
When I grew up, Christianity seemed like it was either really irrelevant and old-fashioned and sort of dusty and sort of incense and sort of "Honor Domine," or they tried to modernize it and it seems just like, right, okay, we're going to talk about Jesus, and like both
Shots
of
at celebrity pastors there. You caught that. We
roots
see what you're doing there, Russell.
Well, I don't know if there's anything for me, and I suppose it takes a certain amount of adulthood, and it might be different for all of us. For me, it seems that it's taken quite a lot to recognize that I need a personal relationship with God.
I need a personal relationship with God. And again, this is where Christianity has the most unique value proposition, that in Christianity, Jesus goes from having disciples that are his servants to an extent and him serving them to, at the end of his life, Jesus calls his disciples his friends. And we who identify as followers of Jesus or disciples of Jesus can also get in on that we have not just a faith that's based on ritual and going to church and all these things, but there is a relational component that we get to have with Jesus as followers.
If instead of always talking to myself inwardly, I could replace one of those voices with an indwelling God. It says in Galatians, it is our job to die so that as Christ died on the cross, he might be reborn in us.
I got goosebumps him saying that. He said it's not just about my own self-talk, but allowing ourselves to die so that Christ can be reborn. He is talking about being born again. He's talking about John 3:3, right? That you must be born again. So it's really interesting to hear the stark contrast here from the clips we just looked at and what he's saying here, which seems to fall in line with Christian orthodoxy.
Just to hear what you think, because for me, my heart is open.
So what I think is that if he's saying what I think he's saying, this is awesome. This is something that many people go through. This is something that people don't quite understand Jesus. They don't quite understand Christianity. They don't quite understand the issue of sin. They don't quite understand positioning yourself as the God, lowercase g of your life, or the capital G of your life. And then as they get older and as they encounter more suffering, as they encounter more questions about life and more questions about the universe or whatever woo-woo you want to talk about, the character of Jesus seems to be the most steady, consistent, linear, and logical character to lean into. And so I find it so refreshing. And Russell here, he's not unique. I mean, we could talk about celebrities who've done this recently, come into faith, everyone from YouTubers to movie stars, so on and so forth. But what Russell represents is a lot of people. Russell represents my buddies in high school who were too busy just jumping in and satisfying their sinful desires and whatever their earthly pleasures was. And then they kind of spent their 20s tricking off their 20s, maybe having kids outside of wedlock, maybe being addicted to drugs, maybe living a life of crime, maybe going through the party scene. And now, as we're all in our mid to late 30s, guess who's coming to church? My same buddies from high school that thought that, man, that's cool. That Jesus thing is cool for you, man. But I'm going to do my own thing. Now they're all coming back around. Now they're all reconsidering Jesus. And so I'm glad that Russell's having these conversations. I'm glad that he's openly talking about him on his platform. And I hope that this inspires other people to really look into the claims of Jesus and the claims of Christianity, because they are not without merit, that there is something beyond just a religious, superstitious approach to Jesus, that Jesus is a historical figure who really came to earth. Most scholars believe this, and most scholars are becoming more and more aware of the amazing net positive impact Christianity has had on the world, not to mention the case of the empty tomb, that Jesus died a brutal death and then 3 days later was resurrected, that they never found his body, that this was beyond just some falsehood or some conspiracy that the apostles were able to create, that this went on to transform the area he came from and eventually the entire known world, with billions of people professing faith in Jesus. And I really do hope that Russell is now a part of the family of Christians all around the world, because I believe not only is it true, I also believe that it is the most practical and pragmatic way to add good to this world, which is by living a life devoted to God's ways, to God's laws, and to really approach this life from that overflow of being born again, of dying to my own desires and my own dreams and the things that I thought I was entitled to, and allowing God to make me new, allowing God and the Spirit of God to transform my heart and give me new desires. So anyway, props to Russell Brand. Not sure if you'll ever see this, but I think this is amazing. And I find it interesting that he's talking about purpose and reading Purpose-Driven Life. And if you'd like to see me get into the depths of what is God's purpose for you and how you can get aligned with that right now, check out this video right here, all right? I'll see you over there. Peace.